here I go. I'm Mark. I'm a 64-year-old queer man in the Chicago area. I volunteered early at LGBTQ organizations like the Howard Brown Health Center back in the 80s. I found employment with some of these other organizations. It was wonderfully liberating to be safely out at work. I'm grateful to have had a taste of that. But those jobs often were not paid very well, so I returned to mainstream employment opportunities. I found employment with a huge transportation company, a freight railroad. I absolutely loved working outdoors, operating the trains, riding the sides of the rail cars with the wind in my hair, the rising sun on my face, seeing the geese, deer, even coyotes in the rail yards, and under the moon and stars on the night shift. It was unpredictable hours that sucked, but oh, the paycheck. Omaha headquarters talked the talk about support for federal equal employment opportunity principles, including for LGBTQ people. Despite the lofty statements coming from company headquarters, I immediately recognized the implicitly accepted homophobia in my local workplace. I so chose to not discuss my private life, relying on my work performance to speak for my value to the company. Still, my reluctance to talk about my personal life fed suspicions among my mostly male coworkers. My not talking about kids and family, declining invitations to go to the stripper bars after work, all that encouraged a whisper campaign. One day, I was part of a work crew in the rail yard. I was coordinating with an engineer to couple a track full of rail cars over the company radio network. My engineer made some sexual innuendo remarks directed at me over the radio, audible to all my coworkers. I was mortified and angry that I could be targeted so flippantly and publicly. I demanded management address this, and a meeting was held. The sniping coworker was a golden boy in management's eyes, and he had many more years seniority than I'd had. The coworker escaped the company's supposed zero tolerance policies, was given a finger waggle not to do that again. My having complained about the gay bashing and harassment caused many of the engineer's longtime coworkers to circle the wagons around him, and I became a pariah for having been unwilling to put up with the abuse. Shortly later, another locomotive engineer said to me, "I'm going to level with you. I don't like you because of that incident you pulled on so-and-so." I was perceived by him and my coworkers to be the troublemaker, not the victim. For months, I endured coworkers disguising their voices on the radio, making still more homophobic snipes at me. Every morning, I go to work to a job that I loved, wondering where I'd face the next batch of gay bashing graffiti targeting me specifically in the bathrooms, in the locker rooms, up on the locomotive engine interior walls. I even found graffiti targeting me by name carved into the wooden panel walls in the shanties in the rail yard where we get out of the rain or snow for a minute. Because of concerns of distraction by electronic devices while operating the trains, I carried a digital camera to document it all. I was dispirited, frustrated, and baffled at how to make it all stop. Management was ineffectual in their response, so I contacted the US EEOC offices. Eventually, the harassment tapered off, but it never completely ended. There would be months without any sniping or graffiti, and then it would start up again. I felt like local management, too, perceived me as the problem rather than the victim. In retrospect, I regret not having been upfront, out and queer from the start at work. The Whisper campaign was enabled by the implicit shame my keeping my personal life private seemed to convey to the homophobes. I had unintentionally armed them with the weapon to gay bash me. The times and workplace attitudes shaped my choices about being out or not at work. Progress has been made with officially protected status from discrimination in the public arena, but there's more to be done, especially in larger businesses with supposedly strong EEO policies. My idea for action There already exist employee affinity fellowship groups explicitly supported by company management at businesses in which they're organized, like the Latino Employee Network or the Black Employee Network at my previous railroad employer. A possible next step toward turning that lofty rhetoric into real in the workplace principles might be to have a national organization that could foster establishment of LGBTQ affinity and support groups in our local workplaces. There's strength in numbers. I wish I had not felt so alone and isolated as I struggled to just do the best work I could at a job that I love so much. I suspect my experience is not uncommon. Homophobia still seems to be the last remaining acceptable prejudice in the workplace. Top management needs to step up and make clear that zero tolerance policies are to be adhered to in the local workplaces. Then LGBTQ employees can step forward in kinship and fellowship in the workplace, knowing they do have management support. Thanks.